The Morning Sports Desk, available on demand on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and WadenaRadio.com.
It is the Morning Sports Desk for a Wednesday, the 31st of July. I'm CJ, that's Corey, and it's a trade deadline not really postcast because it's not a live reaction, but about 16-ish hours after the trade deadline, it's coming on.
Your worst titles ever, CJ. I got to be honest with you.
You know what? I like it. I think it's just going to grow on you. I think it's something that if you just give it enough time, I think you'll really come to appreciate. It's like a Star Wars prequel. In 20 years, they'll write YouTube video essays about my greatness. Anyway, the Twins come away not empty-handed at the trade deadline, Corey.
Yeah.
We are expecting the Twins to make no moves, and they made a move. So if you're somebody who's in the do something crowd, you'll be very happy because the Twins traded for Trevor Richards, a right-handed reliever from the Toronto Blue Jays. That's been their one move. And we'll get to kind of the full breakdown on him in a second. Mm-hmm. But that was the one move. Now, according to Dan Hayes of The Athletic, the Twins had some interesting avenues that they were trying to go with. One is that they were basically had a deal in place to get Kikuchi from the Blue Jays. So we talked about it in yesterday's show, and you can go back and listen to that. The Astros had a complete overpay, and basically the Twins had a deal in place to get him, and the Astros just blew the doors off of their offer.
Sure.
The Twins weren't going to give up a top 10 organizational prospect and two others.
Yep.
To go get a rental reliever who would have been a year 4 starter. That's just not what you were going to do. And basically the theme is, and again, maybe the cynical version would say, of course you can say that after the fact, but I mean, the only way to talk with them is after the fact, is that, so they had tried to get a deal in place for Kikuchi. Boom. That went off the table. They were trying to trade for Jack Flaherty of the Tigers, who got traded to the LA Dodgers yesterday. And of course and they also wanted to get Garrett Crochet from Crochet, either Crochet or Fetty, one of the two White Sox pitchers. They were in talks to get one of them. But basically, Corey, you remember this thing called the division tax?
Yes.
Where trading in some teams don't care. Some teams are like, look, if we can get the best player, if we feel like we get a return, we'll take it. And some teams are like, not only that, because it's in the division, you have to give us X more. Because we don't want to just give this guy to you and have him torment us multiple times a year. You know what I mean? So the division tax, Corey, according to this Dan Hayes article, said basically if they wanted to get either Flaherty or one of those White Sox pitchers, they needed to include one of Brooks Lee, Walker Jenkins, or Emmanuel Rodriguez, who are basically one of their top 3 prospects. No.
For a guy who
for a 2-month rental.
Exactly.
No, like that's not anyway.
And just poorly executed by the White Sox.
Yeah.
Like probably could have gotten a good player. Probably could have gotten a good player, but nope, you demanded a king's ransom and everyone called your bluff.
And for the Tigers, that same thing happened because the return they got from the Dodgers was not good. But I think it's because the Yankees, according to this Dan Hayes article, were heavily, and other sources, were heavily set to get Flaherty, that instead of going to the Dodgers, Flaherty was going to go to the Yankees. And this interesting wrinkle for why it matters for Twins fans was that if that would have happened, then Nestor Cortez for the Yankees, you remember him, Jim Cott had a great moment with him. But Nestor Cortez would have became on the trade block for the Yankees to make room on the active roster, in which case the Twins were ready to make a deal to go get a nice middle of the rotation starter in Nestor Cortez. But the Yankees didn't like the medicals for Flaherty, so they told the Tigers no. And I think the Tigers basically were like, oh crap, the trade deadline's almost here. We got to get something. Dodgers.
Sure.
They're the only ones with the deal left on the table. And I think that's kind of what happened. So a lot, I know the Guardians got Alex Cobb. I know there were some rumblings that maybe the Giants were asking the Twins for him. Alex Cobb has not pitched all year. and the Guardians traded for him. So the Twins were like, no, we're not trading for a guy who hasn't pitched yet this year. We're not doing that. So that's essentially kind of where things stand for the Twins. This Dan Hayes article wraps around, and I'm saying all this to get, because I'm right with Dan Hayes on this article, is the reason this trade deadline was so low wattage, and the reason that you felt like you were just in a box with every move you made, is because the salary was slashed by $27 million this year. And because of that, you were forced to operate within thin parameters, and you're forced to basically, your options are just so limited, and they're not willing to burn the prospect capital on some of these guys. So it's not that the Twins having no money to spend, they would have figured something out, but also it's like, why do you intentionally turn the difficulty up when you don't have to? And I think that's just the basic thing out of this trade deadline. Corey, any thoughts? I know I just kind of dumped a lot of information out there.
Well, a quick add-on to that. I think I saw Major League Baseball's essentially reimbursing the Twins for some of that television revenue lost. Which, is...
Yeah, and they're doing that with some of the other teams, but yeah, they're included in that.
That would have been helpful. So, but before we learn about this Blue Jays guy, yesterday you predicted a guy that maybe would be a target for the Twins. He ended up going somewhere else before all of this Twins news came out. So how are you feeling when that news of whatever that guy's name was, when that broke? Were you feeling a little heartbroken, or was that that was just your wish list?
That was a wish list. And Tanner Scott, no relation to Michael Scott that we know of, but he got traded, of course, to the San Diego Padres. And I put something out there on Twitter yesterday of like, well, it would have been a fun thing to have a good lefty in a high leverage role, but when you get in a bidding war with the Padres, you're gonna lose.
Yep.
You're done. The Twins have a nice farm system. The Padres spend a lot of money, but the reason why they spend a lot of money and go make big trades, their farm system is always stacked. It's amazing to me, the Padres. Their farm system is always top notch in baseball, but the Padres never call up their top prospects because they trade them all of the time. It's like the Yankees in the 90s, like they have decent farm systems, but they never use them because they just trade for whoever the big name is that they need to go get. And that's essentially what the Padres have been doing when they traded for a Juan Soto, when they traded for a Yu Darvish, when they, whatever. And so they do the same thing. They traded a Hall for a reliever. They got another reliever back, but they sent 4 prospects over, which again, for a rental arm is rich, but the Padres want to go for it. And the Twins can't be the Padres. I get it. That GM in San Diego is one of one, but yeah, it was a wish list kind of thing. It would have been nice to get him, but so is life.
So the Twins end up, they trade for this Blue Jays guy. They give up an infield prospect. So, who was involved? What's the breakdown of this Twins deal?
So looking at the Twins and what deal that they made. So first off, they traded for, and I'll pull his stuff up here right now. The Twins traded for Trevor Richards is his name. Again, a right-handed reliever from the Blue Jays. Nothing spectacular. When you look at his charts, he has a 4.64 ERA this season, and he has a career 4.51 ERA. His average leverage index, which is basically like how big of spots are you showing up in, is like a 1 to like 0.5, and the league average is 2. The point is he's a very low wattage reliever. If you look, though, this is Baseball Savant page if you're watching on the YouTube, his weighted ERA and weighted batting average are very good. So it basically says like he's getting a little unlucky. Now, they're not predictive. It's not always predictive, but it's just basically saying, that he got a little unlucky with some of this stuff. He doesn't throw very hard. I think his average fastball is maybe like 91 miles an hour, which I think even the Gardy era Twins would go, geez, that guy does not throw very hard, huh?
Yeah,
so,
it said, I saw that. That was like the next thing I saw on your graph there was, it was like, oh, this is classic Twins, 89 to 92, probably a sinker baller guy.
Yeah, exactly. All we need is for him to see. The other thing, though, is the ground ball rate sitting at like in the 12th percentile. He has a 34% ground ball rate. If it was a Guardy or a Twin, that thing would be at 100% ground ball rate.
Well, we'd hope.
Anyway, he is, this is the fascinating part about him. He only, and some bullpen guys do this, he only throws 2 pitches.
Okay.
Change-up and a four-seamer. He throws his change-up about 57% of the time. He's really going to lean on that change-up. And then he also has a four-seamer that he mixes in. Basically, if you look at him this season and you look at kind of where they rank his pitches, his changeup has a -2 run value, and so does his fastball. But last season, his changeup had a +8 run value, which is basically that was his most effective pitch. The season before, the changeup was also his most effective pitch. So this is a guy whose changeup is nasty. It's got a lot of stuff. The problem is, and where he's run into trouble, Corey, is when you look at his walk rate. So if you look, his walk rate is 11% this season. For a reliever, not great. The league average is 8.4. So he's walking above the league average clip. He has a walks, hits, innings pitched of like 1.5. So essentially, a lot of it is he's running into some command problems with that changeup, and it leads to walks. And if you're a reliever, and if you've gone to the Metrodome at all, the walks will haunt.
Here's the other thing. Can you scroll back down just a little bit to that image right there? This is a thing about command. Is if you're not able to paint the edges of the strike zone, your changeup is going to show as middle and down heavy.
Right.
And your four-seam fastball is going to show middle and up heavy, which means if you can't get the outside of the zone, you have to throw strikes. So you have to start leaving the ball over the plate, and people are going to start the balls that are left over the plate are going to get hammered because they know they don't have to swing at anything that isn't just over the plate.
Right. And if you look at some of this other stuff, so this is all pitches. If you look at the swings and misses he generates off the changeup, there you go. Yep. When he's able to keep that changeup down, it's a very good pitch. And when you look at the other way, when he's able to keep that four-seamer in the upper part where hitters are like, they get wide-eyed and then they swing and miss, that's where you're able to draw that. Now, where you look at where his base hits come from, they come from when he, like you talked about, can't locate the four-seamer and has to throw it right down the middle. And the same thing for the changeup. They hit the changeup when he can't locate it down.
I mean, it's hilarious. It tells you everything, right? Like, of course, on the last graph you showed the swings and misses. Of course, your pitches down on a changeup are swings and misses, and your fastballs up are swings and misses because they're starting in the same spot. And the fastball just stays up there and blows by you. It's too quick. Anyway, that's super fascinating graph. How about the guy that the Twins gave up? Some prospect, some infield prospect. Most importantly, he's not an infield prospect named Brooks Lee, Ed Julian, Royce Lewis. He's none of those guys.
Not a Jose Miranda, not a Ed Julian. No.
Guy at all?
Well, one last thing I'll say on Richards, and then we'll talk about this guy a little bit, is the one thing that you can hang your hat on to is the fact of that his average exit velocity is sitting right about league average. So this guy is not getting hit particularly hard, and the barrel rate is pretty low. He's keeping that well below league average, or a percent below league average. So the thing is, like, if
indicates a little unlucky this year.
If you can just say, basically the thing is, if he can just have a little better command, he can be effective. And I have a piece that's going up today talking about how basically, like, what's realistically, because here's the thing, this guy is not going to be a high leverage reliever. He's not going to be like perfect. You have Griffin Jacks, then you have Trevor Richards, and then you have Joan Duran. That's not how this thing goes. This guy's going to be pitching in the 6th inning when the team is down by 3 runs. That's where he's coming into the ball game. The Twins bullpen is running on fumes though, so they need just any kind of help. Since the All-Star break, Corey, they are like 25th in bullpen WAR. They are 26th in bullpen win probability added. So the amount of the win probability chart, are they pushing you closer? Are they putting you further away? They are negative, and they're 26th in baseball. If you look at their bullpen ERA, and obviously they had that game on Monday night against the Mets, so it's going to skew things a little bit. They are dead last post All-Star break as a bullpen.
Well, and it's important, right? Like you mentioned, he's going to be your fifth, sixth, the middle reliever kind of guy. They used to call him, long innings or whatever, which doesn't really exist anymore. But the point is, you need to have a guy to fill that slot, not because you don't need to win every game in a 162 game season. The point is, we need a guy to just eat some of those innings, so that it's not to win games that we're losing. It's so that we win the games we're supposed to win. And we have those guys who can get us wins in those crucial moments available. It's just about a little more depth. We're not expecting, and they're not expecting magic out of this guy. Obviously, if they get it, they'll take it. But that's not what this is. This is a chance to relieve the relievers a little bit and allow them a breather in games where it turns sideways. You give up 17 hits to the Mets. You know what? Get Richards out there and let him just throw 3 innings and eat a couple up. Who cares what happens in this one?
Exactly. And I talk about in this article that I have going up today, what's basically the spectrum of outcomes. What's like the bottom percentile, or like the middle to lowish percentile. That's Dylan Floro, what he was last year, like a middle reliever, or somebody who you don't trust in big moments, but somebody you can just throw out there to pitch every once in a while. The high end, basically what's the most realistic outcome for Trevor Richards being a success. And the Twins had this guy a couple of years ago. It was Michael Fulmer. He ended up being the most impactful trade the Twins had at that infamous 2022 deadline. And he was just a rental arm, came in. Same thing as what Richards is. Baldelli never put in Fulmer in like those big late inning tie game, bases loaded in the 8th kind of spots. But it's like 6th inning, we're up or down by 4. Can you just come in, throw a 0, get us in and out? And Fulmer wasn't great, but he had an ERA of like 3.7, which will play for somebody that you're being asked to do. So realistically speaking, can he just keep an ERA of like 3.7 to 4 and just basically not be a blow up? Because again, as we've talked about, if this guy even comes in and has like 2 blow up outings, well, this trade's just a dud. Like it's over. We got no value from this guy just because of the limited times that you're going to need him. But they're not going to be in a lot of high leverage roles either. So
if he goes in and you're up by 4, when he's done pitching, can you be up by 3? If you're down, if you're down by 3, then come in and pitch, and hopefully in the time that you're in to pitch, we're still only down 3. Like it is all you need to do is be good enough to keep the other team at bay and good enough to keep your team within striking distance. That's it. It's pretty low stress.
Exactly. And to finish on who the Twins traded to get this guy. So if you look, the guy's name is Jay Harris. So Jay Harris is, and I'm pulling up his baseball reference page so we can. Yeah, the Sports Center guy, Jay Harris.
Well, that's it's already a win in my book. What a great trade.
I'm trying to see where this guy. Man, I am not Jay Harry. Excuse me. Jay Harry was his name, and this should tell you, Corey, the fact that I don't know who this guy's name is means that it's fine. Here's this guy's Jay Harry. Here's his baseball reference page. Got traded to the Blue Jays. He was the lone guy that got moved. If you look up top here, he was a 6th round draft pick of the Twins last year. He played at Penn State. Whatever. He's an infield prospect, but here's his OPS this year in high A, 655. League average is 700, 750.
Sure.
He's a low wattage. Best case scenario, he can be a utility infielder.
Sure.
At the big league level. You trade it. Remember that line in Moneyball Corey, when they're talking about trade deadline stuff, and Brad Pitt's character is looking at Jonah Hill, and they're just like, they're listening to offers, and the other team's GM through the phone is just giving him names, and he gives out a name, and the guy looks it up, and he goes 25 years old, and he goes 25 years old in AA, forget about it. It's like, I'm not interested at all. And that's the same thing. 21 years old in high A, can't really hit there. Yeah, done. I don't.
So the expectation then of Richards is that he's a short-term rental, and like everyone understands what's at stake here.
Right. Remember we talked yesterday about like, I don't know, do the Twins just offer this package with like a 19-year-old kid in low A as like, I don't know, man, maybe he'll be good, but this is going to be so far down the road that it doesn't really matter. And that's kind of the same thing. I mean, if the guy turns out and becomes a great hitter, great on him. But the Twins have a pretty deep infield right now, and this guy is struggling at high A, Cedar Rapids. So get some kind of value for him while you can, and whatever. And for the Blue Jays, they're just selling. That's a guy that's going to be gone. Just get somebody for him and just kind of deepen your farm system. For the Twins rankings, I think he was ranked like 38th on the team's overall farm system, which is pretty low. So yeah, this guy the Twins basically just got him for nothing. It's like when you get there and like, do you need this one thing at the gas station? And all you have is $5 in your pocket. And it's like, that thing is just $5. And it's $5 that you have in your pocket because you left your jeans in the washer. And you're like, oh, cool. I didn't even know I had $5 in here. That's what it is.
Well, may he rest in peace.
May he rest in peace. All right. Let's talk a little Vikings, huh?
Real quick. Yeah. Let's get it done, huh?
So training camp has been happening for the last week, and there has not been a ton of big chatter outside of the ACL injury. The Vikings did sign Fabian Moreau, a defensive back, played a little bit with the Broncos. What?
French.
Yes, exactly. French or French Canadian? I think that's the big. I think that's the big question. And so, whatever, depth signing. They needed that. They signed a couple other guys. I mean, they're just get bodies in the room. Can one of them make a Duke Shelley type run like he did a couple years ago for the Vikings?
Including Duke Shelley, by the way.
Including Duke Shelley. Duke
kind of run.
Duke Shelley 2 Electric Boogaloo is going to be great. I mean, I can already see it happening. So looking at some kind of takeaways, this is from Alec Lewis of The Athletic, talking about how rookie quarterback JJ McCarthy has not taken any snaps with the first team offense. He's been throwing to the kind of second group of wide receivers. Talking about his mechanics look more polished than they did this spring. Throwing left, not a consistent problem. Heaving it deep, McCarthy connected with Tristan Jackson yesterday afternoon on a 50-yard strike down the field against the first team defense. Hasn't been perfect, sailing a couple passes, but basically looking like he's holding his own out there. Kevin O'Connell mentioned that JJ, there's a plan in place to get him some first team reps, and basically they're still doing install with him. They're still trying to get him the playbook down and trying to get him, whatever. But from the reporters that I've been reading and following, basically it seemed like JJ McCarthy is having a handle of what the Vikings have been giving him so far. So I'm just going to throw a random date out there, Corey. Do you think we hear reports of JJ McCarthy getting in, not just like a snap, but consistent snaps? Do you think we get him consistent snaps with the first teamers by August 10th?
No. No.
You were very quick with that.
He's not going to, he is here.
Not going to practice, just to get him some reps, see how he's doing.
No, because they got Sam Darnold who has to take those reps, who's going to be the opening day starter. Here, how about this? Let's just throw out a hypothetical. Sam Darnold has an Aaron Rodgers-esque debut with the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
Okay. 4 plays into his career with his new team, it's a knee injury and he's out for the year. Is JJ McCarthy the guy that they're bringing in to replace?
As of right now, it's probably Nick Mullins.
Heck yeah, it's Nick Mullins.
Because if you don't think McCarthy's ready to be the starting quarterback, you're not going to put him one injury away from getting on the field.
the depth chart right now has Darnold 1, McCarthy 2, Mullins 3, and Jaron Hall 4. Okay. If an Aaron Rodgers-esque injury happens to Sam Darnold, Mullins is going to do it. They're not going to stray. They're not going to stray from their plan with JJ. Maybe the plan is he's the starter the week after the bye. Maybe that is a part of the plan. I don't know, and I don't really care that much. But whatever the plan is, McCarthy, the only way to get around this is McCarthy just is a man amongst boys. He walks in there and he owns the room and he owns the playbook, and everybody looks at him and then they look at the coach. Every time Darnold throws an incomplete pass, JJ Jefferson looks up at O'Connell and kind of like gives him a side eye, be like, what are we doing here, coach? It's not going to happen. The McCarthy plan is patience. He's going to have to take snaps with the ones probably to get people to shut up. And also just because it's good for him and it's good for his growth. But that's everything that they're doing, and everything that's going to happen with McCarthy is going to be purely for growth purposes.
Yeah. I'm down with that. I don't have much to add. I think we're right on with that.
Why would they? Because otherwise they would be talking about him being the number one starter. Like they would have drafted him and they said, we're so looking forward to getting this guy going day one. That's not what this is. They have been maybe not overt, but certainly not covert about their intentions with JJ.
Right. This is a fascinating hypothetical. Do you envision like a scenario, or just like, do you think that there's a path at all for McCarthy? Just like, even if he has like, let's say he has a couple good weeks of practice in a row, mid-August. It's not quite leading up to week 1, but like in the middle of August, he just has a couple really good weeks of practice where he's looking solid. Do you think there's anything at all? I know we're not in the room or like at practices, but do you think there's anything at all that would make them go, he's close enough? And I feel like, is there any room for McCarthy being the week 1 starter, or do you think it's Darnold no matter what?
I think it's Darnold no matter what. I think what week did Cousins get hurt?
It was in late October or mid-October. So
7.
Yeah, week 7, week 8.
So to re-up the hypothetical of, okay, we got the Aaron Rodgers thing out of the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now let's use a Kirk Cousins scenario. If Darnold gets hurt week 7, which is about when their bye week is, whatever. We don't need to get into the specifics of the schedule, but roughly around that time, end of October. Now we can talk about McCarthy being ready to roll.
Right.
Being the guy who maybe is ready to handle that spot. But I don't, what's the point of rushing this?
Yeah.
Unless he's completely and utterly ready. But do you remember even in Minnesota hearing about Russell Wilson? You do, right? Because it was crazy. All anybody could talk about was like, this Wilson kid, man. Like, it's proud, and it was baffling because they were like, it's not really going to be this like grad transfer from NC State to Wisconsin they just signed Matt Flynn, and then the pros would come in and be like, he's kind of taking the job. That's not a single bit of any of this conversation that's happening around JJ McCarthy. We're still very early,
right?
But that takeover needs to start happening pretty soon for that conversation to change. And if the conversation does change, I'll change my opinion. But that's not. He is the 2025 starter.
Right. Jalen Naylor has been taken over at practice and kind of the team will never say it, but is starting to emerge as maybe that wide receiver 3. He was a Michigan State pick, like a 6th round pick a couple of years ago. He was hurt a lot of last year, kind of scrawnier wide receiver. It's him and Brandon Powell competing for that wide receiver 3 job, because remember, outside of Jefferson and Addison, the depth chart is like
right. Addison's going to miss time.
Right. And whether it's 1 game or 3 or whatever, like count on that. So it'll be fascinating to see with that wide receiver 3 job. Brandon Powell did a nice job filling in last year as like that wide receiver 4, and then played really well in those few weeks when Jefferson was hurt and kind of needed, and he ended up getting more snaps. He had the game-winning touchdown against Atlanta. So there's some things just to kind of keep an eye on with the wide receiver 3 matchup there for the Vikings throughout training camp. Because again, once Hawkinson gets back and you have Addison, Hawkinson, Jefferson all back, those are your top 3 options. And then it kind of trickles down with the rest of them from there. But Hawkinson's not coming back till like week 6 at least. So it's going to take some time. So they're going to need to figure, and that's the beauty of this year not being able to compete. You can kind of allow for a Stephon Diggs or an Adam Thielen. Not that they're going to be that in that stratosphere, but one of these guys that you're trying to develop, this is a good year for them to get a lot of reps and see if you have anything in any of them.
You think he'll probably go with Naylor at that spot because Powell can do some of the returning?
Yeah, and the fact that they drafted
on that.
Powell is a KOC guy from when they were in LA. He was like a backup wide receiver when O'Connell was with the Rams. But yeah, like they drafted Tristan Jackson. They've talked about him even when he was hurt last year. Like last training camp, they're really high on him. It just feels like he's a guy that if there's anybody that they're like pulling for to take that job, it feels like it's got to be him.
Also, they got Wanwu, who should be healthy this year too, right? So we're talking about kick returner, punt returner with Wanwu and Powell, and Powell played in his moments. He had moments, I guess I should say, but as of right now, again, I'm looking at depth charts for the Vikings on ESPN, and they've got Jefferson, Addison, Naylor, but then Powell is listed as like the second string for wide receiver 1. Right. So technically, I suppose that puts him at 4th on the, he's whatever, like he's right in the mix.
All right. Let's wrap this up, Corey, with the sports trivia Wednesday. What do you got?
All right. It's a baseball trivia. It's called Who Am I? And it's from the TikTok account Timeout Trivia. I will give you 3 clues. We'll try to guess the name. I don't think I've seen this one, so we can try to guess together. As soon as you think you know the answer, feel free to ring it out. Let's see if we can get this thing right.
Okay.
I was a pitcher in the bigs for 12 seasons.
Okay.
I played for the Diamondbacks, the Astros, the Tigers, and the Mets. Diamondbacks, Astros, Tigers, Mets. Any clues at all? Any guesses, I should say?
Ian Kennedy.
All right. Mark that one down because I would have to skip all the way ahead to find out the answer to that.
Okay. Even better, like Jordan Zimmerman.
Okay, great. We've got 2 guesses in. Clue number 2. I never started a game in my career, and I had 288 saves.
Okay, both those guys are gone then.
Both those guys are down, but it's that seems like that should narrow it down quite a bit.
You'd think.
The Tigers is the Astro. I keep going to the name that comes up is Ryan Presley, but of course we know he played for the Twins.
Right. And obviously, like Joel Zumaya played for the Twins, like briefly, so he's not on this list. I'm trying to think of like a Tigers closer. Remember Joe Nathan, Tigers closer? That was a thing for a while.
How about Fernando Rodney?
He also played for the Twins.
Oh yeah, that's right. Gosh dang it.
Yeah, I know.
That.
Oh man, this is
closer type. I always assume, by the way, Diamondbacks, Astros, Tigers, Mets, I think those are always listed in order.
Right.
Mets would be the most recent team if you think that helps.
Let's go to the next clue.
The third and final clue. I led my league in saves 3 different times. In 2007 for Arizona, 2008 for Houston, 2011 for Detroit. Come on. It's
right?
going to hurt me that I can't figure this out because I'm definitely going to know the name.
Right in the wheelhouse. Brad Lidge.
We're done.
Brad Lidge.
That has to be it. Who am I? CJ? Oh, it's not right.
Darn it.
It is Jose Valverde.
Oh, Jose. No way.
I don't remember that name at all.
I like in the back of my mind, maybe, but
Brad Lidge was such a good guess. Good job.
Brad Lidge. You ever see, and we'll finish on this, there's a YouTuber called Foolish Baseball, and he has a video of basically, it's just titled The Time Albert Pujols Broke Brad Lidge.
Oh,
and that home run that Pujols hit off him in the NLDS or CS, where he just absolute, I think in 06, just hit it over the train tracks at Minute Maid. Just a complete tank. And Lidge basically was awful for an entire year.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, that broke him. Because he was like dominant.
All
And
right.
Pujols home run broke him.
Let's do one more. We got a quick minute. Let's do one more. I was an infielder, outfielder in Major League Baseball for 11 seasons. I played for the Brewers, Mariners, Red Sox, Astros, Giants, and Orioles.
Okay.
Holy smokes. This
There's
is
too many teams now.
I know. Clue number 2. I was never an all-star, but I hit 35 home runs for the Brewers in 2006.
Oh.
Who was a right field guy?
Well, Ryan Braun was their left fielder.
Nope.
But it's not. They had Braun. They had Fielder. Man. This is going to kill me. Okay, next clue.
I played at least 25 games at all positions except first base, catcher, and pitcher in my career. So we're talking about ultimate utility guy.
About somebody's Willie Castro here.
Yeah, but better.
Okay. Except he was never an all-star. Willie Castro was.
Yeah, true. 35 home runs for the Brewers in 06. Ultimate utility guy. But Brewers would have been, that's the farthest to go. Farthest, team. Most recently for the Orioles. Giants to the Orioles. It's a lot of orange. Astros, Giants, Orioles.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank, Corey.
Who am I? Oh yeah, this would have been tough. I am Bill Hall.
Bill Hall. That's such a generic name too. How am I supposed to remember that? Jose Valverde. I could like it rolls off the tongue enough to where I'm like, okay, that might trigger a memory. Nope.
Yeah, right. Nope. Bill Hall.
Bill Hall.
Bill Hall could have played in 1822 just as easy as he did in 2022.
Except he would have been like Billy Hall Stockings or something like that if he played in 1922.
Yeah, right, exactly.
This has been the Morning Sports Desk on a Wednesday, the 31st of July.
The Morning Sports Desk, available on demand on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and WadenaRadio.com.